Welcome to the How to Raise Money podcast for anyone who wants to raise other people's money for a business or property venture. Right now, there has never been more money on the planet, and there has never been more opportunity. This podcast will help you put the two together. So, if you need money for your business or property proposals from banks, lenders, angels, whales, or dragons, this is the podcast for you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the How to Raise Money podcast. My name is Ray McLennan.
And it's with me, Nigel T. Best. Raymondo, how the devil are you? Are you doing well?
Yes, we're onwards and upwards as always.
Well, there's no other way, is there?
There's no other way. There is no other way. No, one foot in front of the other. Get up, dress up, show up. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's it. Well, interesting episode today because obviously we're going to be dissecting the Scottish performance in the Euro Football Championships. Are we? No?
That won't take long.
Well, I was going to say, rumour has it that they have now untangled the keeper from the net and he is available to play again later. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, yeah, just watch Scotland's first game and unlucky. Mind you.
Social media was very quick because literally minutes after there was pictures of him tied up with Spider-Man firing, with his wrists out firing up.
Yeah, he was found. He was last seen in the back of the net, tangled up, a bit like a trout in a fisherman's net or something. But no, he was good. I thought, I have to say, the Scottish performance, you're going to go a long way to have someone in your team with coronavirus, but get two of the old enemies' teams suspended for their game for being in close proximity. Obviously, the Scottish team hate him, and he's a pariah in the dressing room, and no one goes near him because I couldn't work out that COVID protocol for that one. But anyway,
apparently they're all in isolation now.
Are they? Well, yeah, but that's just for losing. That's nothing to do with coronavirus, is it?
No, it is coronavirus, apparently.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, enough of football. We don't even care about it, really. It's only a game. It's only a game.
Only a game, yeah.
Yeah, but obviously, if whenever you're listening to this, depending on the result between England and Germany, it's either a beautiful game or a stupid waste of time. And you should do something else instead. But Ray, we've got an important one today.
Yep.
And it's something that is affecting something I'm involved in very heavily. Yep. And I know you've noticed it as well on projects that you're involved in. And this is something, so folks, if you're listening to this thinking, should I be interested in this one or not? I'd say yes. And you need to listen carefully because it's a salutary warning to the fact that although you can do all the 7 Ps of proper planning and preparation to prevent poor performance and all the rest of it, sometimes something out of your control kicks in and takes over. Now, we're not talking pandemic. We're not talking coronavirus on this one. We're talking kind of the knock-on effects of this, Ray, aren't we?
It is very much the knock-on effects, yeah.
And what we've seen, I mean, I've got a friend who's an MD of a sort of speaker, microphone, audio type business, and he had a few of his crates on that ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal. So he was chuntering on about ship's pilots and how the hell do you crash it in a straight bit and things like that. When we're all told these tankers can't turn around for love nor money, how he didn't keep it straight, he was furious. But the knock-on effect of all this, ports in China being, closed down and all sorts of things means that everything's in the wrong place. All the containers are in the wrong place. Ships can't unload, offload, reload, whatever happens to them. And the knock-on effect is, Ray, do you want to pick it up here?
Yeah, well, the knock-on effect is commodity prices and demand in the UK and globally continues to outstrip the supply, which, as we all know in Economics 101, means prices go up. So there's been I suppose, record sales of building materials, and there's a full pipelines, all that sort of thing. And those challenges are going to continue. So things that are being affected, so anyone who's doing any kind of renovation or new build or anything like that, timber prices have gone up. Roof tiles are taking weeks, if not months, to be made. Steel products, short supply. Paint, sealant, chemical products, and electrical products affected by raw material shortages, and that's been going on for a while. But the main thing, I suppose, for a lot of the shortfall is because a lot of these commodities are tied up in containers in various parts of the world. They're all around the world, waiting to be unloaded. And the unloading is simply manpower. It's manpower to do the physical unloading, but then there's also the admin, the administration of checking what's in the container. And the people that do that are usually government type employees, and they're not quick to rush back if they've been furloughed or anything like that, wherever they are in the world. So all of that's having a knock-on effect. And with things trying to get back to normal, again, it's compounding that. But also over the last few months, quite a lot of pubs and outdoor places, or pubs, they were only allowed to serve if they were outdoors, if it was outdoors. So a lot of pubs created patio decking and all that sort of carry on, and building outdoor structures of timber. So there was a lot of one-offs where materials were being, scooped up, and again, price rises because of that. Now, when we talk about how to raise money, there are projects that were, I suppose, the financial appraisal was done for those months and months ago, and this was not allowed for. So we have a situation now where a number of contracts are that are being renegotiated, shall we put it? I was going to say they were in jeopardy, but they're being renegotiated because there's not an awful lot more can be done. If commodity prices take an exceptional leap like this, then the builders, the developers, are not going to carry on because they will make no money. They may even make a loss. So they have to turn around to the builders have to turn around to the developer, to the companies that are instructing them, and say, look, we need to renegotiate. We need more money just to get things done. And that is anything around 10% that they're looking for, 10% increases. So what does that mean if you've raised money and you've done your financial appraisal and you've got it pretty much exact, and you've even had a contingency in there, an allowance in there in case anything goes wrong, and now that's been eaten up? So what do you do? Well, the answer is you simply have to negotiate and go back to the lender, go back to the people that have put money in and say, more money needs to be put into this to get this project across the line. What other alternative is there? Because if builders say, well, we can't make any money and we're going to have to walk off the job, it's going to get caught up in a big, huge legal quagmire. You're going to have to find another builder. If you find another builder, I mean, they're notorious for not wanting to take on jobs that are halfway through anyway. And then if they do, they've got you by the short and curlies. So you're going to have to, may as well negotiate with the one that's there. Now, the builders we've seen, they're not taking advantage of this. They're not sort of holding sites to hostage. They're trying to be reasonable. I mean, that's the one thing about this last year with the whole COVID thing. Everyone's in the same boat. So everyone is trying to be reasonable and trying to reach accommodation. And that's all there is to it, is to try and reach some kind of accommodation.
From my point of view, what I'm involved in and what I've witnessed is, the main contractors are saying, look, we're going to have to break this contract. We can't fulfill on this contract. And to be quite honest, to even try and pursue it would be ruinous for us. We won't be able to pay subcontractors, and very quickly it becomes a house of cards and it collapses quite quickly. And it's a bit of a strange one, isn't it, Ray? Because normally these things are impacted when the demand falls off a cliff. And this time around, the demand is there. It's very strong, but so much so that it's affected all the material input prices into your calculations. So, Yeah, it is one of these things that, if you're in a situation where you are ordering, decent quantities of concrete or timber or steel, you really need to be having a chat with your developer, because you need to make sure that these are factored in. Because one of the things I just put out there as a note of caution is, sometimes you can find that if somebody has to pay more for one bit, they try and get something else a bit cheaper to balance it out. When something this big goes on, the only way, if you force someone to continue, then the chances are that they're going to use something to save the money elsewhere. Is it cutting corners? Is it substandard material? Well, that's up to you to manage your particular project, or make sure someone's managing it for you. But you've got to be careful. You've got to have a sensible and pragmatic approach. But Ray, we are where we are, which means that we've got to come back to the table and say to everyone involved in the scheme, okay, it wasn't your fault, wasn't our fault. It wasn't necessarily the ship's captain of that one that couldn't get through the Suez Canal. Whose fault is it? Well, it's kind of immaterial. The blame game at this point is immaterial. What you're looking at is, how do you sort it out? And often what you find is, if there is a strong demand like there is at the moment, then you could say, well, we thought we were going to sell for this much. Let's go back to the market, test the market, and just see actually if everything has fed through the system. And instead of getting £200,000 for this house or whatever it might be, do we actually get, could we get 220? And talking to people about properties at the moment, Ray, I'm sure you've found the same things. Talking to someone at auction who spotted a house, who said 120 was a good price, 155, do a bit of smartening up. 155 is a good sale price. It went for 235 at the auction. So there are some crazy things going on. So maybe all these costs coming through, this impact on having to raise money, maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel, in as much as maybe the GDV, the gross development value, has gone up a bit as well to compensate. So hopefully it's a hurdle to get over. But Ray, when it comes to going back and negotiating, talk us through your sort of approach to that, how you begin to broach that subject, because it's a bit of a thorny one. And for many people, they don't want to have that conversation, do they?
No, they don't. But
that's not a good idea. Head in the sand is not a good idea.
No, it's not. The key is to do it as early as possible. So as soon as you see these things happening. So when, we've seen from sort of January onwards, the price of timber going up and up and up and up, and the price of steel going up and up and up. And then that's been exacerbated by delivery problems, because there's a shortage of drivers now, hauliers. And that's down to COVID, essentially, because the UK, well, it's lost some drivers to Brexit, but the bulk there's 30,000 UK driver tests due to COVID, which has exacerbated the whole shortage. So the Road Haulage Association is now discussing with the Department of Transport ways to try and fix this, try and remedy this, because again, it's the compound, the knock-on effect of all of these things. Now, when prices go up, that's kind of normal. When they keep going up and keep going up and keep going up, then that's a different position. Now, they've come down a bit, but they're going to be here for the rest of the year because of the exacerbation of the supply problems and then the delivery problems and the demand. It's as simple as that. So now that realization has come, it is time to get back to the lenders, to the investors, and say, we have a bit of a challenge here. Now, with the established lenders, I had asked two of them. I tried to speak to more, but I managed to speak to two of them and said, look, what's your position on this? And their position is they have to be pragmatic. They have to be as pragmatic as possible and say, right, okay, what are we lending against? What's the loan to value, et cetera, et cetera. If there's room for maneuver, then they'll do it. They want to see quantity surveyor reports, that sort of thing. They need to see all the paperwork to justify it. And it is there to justify, the QS. Anyone who spends 5 minutes doing a quick search can find out that commodity prices have gone up, and you can see how much they've gone up by, 40%. A 5% rise would be unusual. 10 would be, would be regarded as a black swan event, but 40, well, that's just,
the one that we've been involved in for a short period of time, timber prices doubled and steel was 40 to 45% up.
Yep.
So it can be very sharp, maybe short-lived, but Ray, in this sort of situation, when you're doing developments and everything's kind of laid out and you've got trades lined up for first fix, second fix, and those sort of things, you hanging around for 6 weeks waiting for those commodity prices to drop again, it is going to cost you in other ways. So, as you say, you've got to grab the bull by the horns.
You just got to go for it. Like I say, they're taking a pragmatic approach. So if you do go back, so if you're the developer and you've got, I don't know, 60% loan to value, and suddenly now you need 65% loan to value, even 70% loan to value, the time to go back and negotiate, because you have to keep the men going. The project has to be finished. There's no point in stopping halfway through. It doesn't achieve anything for anybody. No one is better off. Okay, builders might be able to just move and go to another job, but they don't particularly want to. Most of the builders I speak to like to see a job finished. They get a great satisfaction in it being finished, being completed. No one wants a half finished project. So, everyone's aiming in the right direction, and it's just a question then of the figures. How much is needed? Well, a QS can step in, and a QS can quite easily get the figures near enough to respectability so that both sides can agree and then keep going. But it's something that has to happen. It has to happen quick. Now, if it's private investors, most private investors know or save a bit of money, keep a bit of money back. When they invest in companies, a lot of private investors know that if they're investing in a startup or a scale up, the amount they've asked for might not be enough, and they might need a top up sometime later on. And the majority of them don't take advantage of that by trying to squeeze a bit more equity out or squeeze a better return. They're reasonably sensible about it. There are a few that that will hold you to ransom. We tend not to work with them very often. I can count on the fingers of one hand investors that are like that try to take advantage, and we just don't deal with them again in the future. But most of them are reasonable. They want to get a return on their money, and they want to see the project completed, and if it's there and they can help, then they'll do it.
Yeah, and Ray, we've spoken about this before in terms of, say you're looking at friends and family as a way of raising money. Maybe it's one of your first sort of projects, first developments, and we've always sort of said you should try, when you're doing this sort of thing, you should try and find out about how much they're lending you. Is it every penny they've got? Are they on a tight deadline? Do they have anything else? Because it could be, if you haven't had that conversation and you don't realize, and this person lent you £100,000, let's say, they needed that interest that you were going to pay 12 months later. They need that £110,000 back because they have to settle an old mortgage, an old endowment mortgage or something, and that's coming up. They're of an age where they can't get another mortgage, and you haven't investigated this, and that 110,000 is absolutely crucial to them. What you don't want to do is have pressure from both sides. Been wanting to raise more money, that's tricky enough, but you don't want to have the money you've borrowed already about to disappear and you have to start again for the whole project. So that's why when we talk about having a conversation with someone saying, okay, you've lent me 100,000. Okay, if things overrun by 6 months, let's say there's another coronavirus outbreak. If things overrun cost-wise, let's say there's a commodity increase. Do you have anything in reserve should that happen? Their conversation's tricky, but Ray, they're worthwhile, aren't they? Because then when you go back to them, you can say, do you remember that conversation I had right at the beginning? Yeah, sadly, it's this. However, the good news is the demand for the properties is skyrocketing. People love it. I've got deposits, it should be good. And that's why people sort of go, yeah, I understand why you should ask, but they never do. But when you're doing friends and family, it could be a useful one to have to do, because otherwise you are going out to the market cold. You've got severe time pressures. And as you say, Ray, seasoned lenders smell the blood in the water, and they may well be offering terms that you feel are crikey, gulp, swallow. That's a tough one to accept, but you may be stuck there. So it's just getting things, well prepared. So for these eventualities, because Ray, you do get people who, if someone needs some money, we've always said time is a great a sort of factor in the equation as to what sort of interest rate you're going to get charged. And if time is short, Ray, how does that affect the interest rate?
It goes up. You just need to speak to bridgers, or there's an association of short-term lenders, which is bridgers, who will do anything, up to 18 months. And the rates can be quite eye-watering. I mean, you're looking at credit card type rates, because they know that, there's a panic, and they look at the end result and say, well, you're going to make a profit out of it. We want to get a slice of that profit. And if you want to finish this and you want to get the profit, then you're kind of held over a barrel in a sense. So it can be tough negotiation and tough terms.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. So maybe that's when you need to be the lender. Who knows? But Ray, one of the things that is something that I know we chat about, and you're always saying as well, is you've got to get out there and have a pool of investors, a pool of people that you can turn to. You need to develop your investors. You need to be able to go out and call on them, because, okay, let's say you need some extra money, and let's say that the person that's lent you the original 100,000, they don't have a time pressure, so you can borrow the 100,000 for an extra 6 months, no problem, but they can't lend you any more. They literally don't have anything. If you've got a pool of investors though, and you needed an extra 20,000, it's always great to only have to pay that higher interest rate on that 20,000, rather than go back and have to do the whole 120 at a much higher rate. Yeah. So, Ray, we always talk about developing and getting those conversations going. And I know we are looking at putting something together to help people on that, how to develop a investor network, because it is crucial. It is crucial to have people, because not everyone in your investor pool they may all be willing, but some of them, the timing of it, they may just be unable to help you out at that point. So you've got to have a few, haven't you?
Indeed, absolutely. It always ebbs and flows. People, investors have their money out working for them. They don't like to have it sitting in the bank doing nothing. They'll keep some in the bank, but they like generally to get large tranches out and be working, and they'll balance it. They'll have some in enterprise investment schemes, which that's tied up for 3 years. They'll do others which are term loans, 3, 4, 5 years, and then they'll do others that are short-term loans. So, most investors will balance it out.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Okay, so the top tips then from today's episode, Ray, are kind of, these things happen. Have a pool of investors potentially on hand to help out.
Yep.
But it's get the communication going as soon as possible, isn't it? Get everyone together, talk it through.
The earlier the better. I mean, I'm always saying, and I'm guilty of this myself, but I teach people to do a follow-up Friday. If you've got money out there for loan that's being loaned to you, get in touch with the lender at least once a week to let them know what's happening. An email. It doesn't have to be a phone call or anything long. It can just simply say project is progressing. Things are going well, or project's progressing. We're having 1 or 2 challenges, or whatever it happens to be. But follow up Friday. Keep in touch.
Yeah, Ray, for some things, the only times you ever get an email from someone is bad news, isn't it? So if you do a follow-up Friday and it's just regular, that bad news gets hidden in some good news. So, maybe it's not taken quite so badly, because you've kept in touch with people. But yeah, there's some, whenever I get an email and it's from a certain organization or whatever, it's just, for goodness sake, what's happened now? And it's weird, because every so often it's a nice email, and it really does surprise you. But yeah, folks, keep in touch with people. Keep in touch. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So make sure you got potential further resources you can draw on before you, hit the start button on that. But it's a weird one at the moment, Ray. Do you see the prices? How do you see this affecting things? Is it going to have knock-on effect on inflation and wage push inflation? Is it going to kibosh the economy? What's going to be the knock-on long-term effect in your opinion?
Nobody knows really. People can speculate, and the speculation is sort of looking at what's happening and then saying, well, that leads to that, leads to that, leads to that. And quantitative easing, money that's out there, all the money that's been pumped in, would point towards inflation. There's going to be some kind of inflation. How much, we don't know. The experts are all speculating various amounts. But when people are released from lockdown, they will go on a spending spree, and then it'll become supply and demand, and then prices go up again. So that will also exacerbate inflation. When the furlough ends, is there going to be massive unemployment? Well, again, we don't know. There are different sectors that benefit from this, and what tends to happen is the working population tends to move from one sector to the other. So if there's for example, there's a massive shortfall in haulage drivers, because a number of them got out because their lifestyle changed. They couldn't do the haulage, so they did they worked from home and did work for Amazon or some other delivery drivers, which were local. So instead of being away from home for days on end and sleeping in cabs and things like that, they thought, hang on a minute, this is easy. I'll do this instead. So they got out of haulage. So you're going to find that haulage companies will then want to attract them back, and the way to attract them back is to give them more money. The way to attract new people in would be to offer better money as well. So there's going to be competition in different sectors, the ones that need it and the ones that have the money. I mean, Amazon, obviously, I've got plenty money and plenty resources, and if they were involved in a bidding war for drivers, I'm sure they would pay more. So that will start feeding through into the economy, and all of that will affect inflation. So prices go up anyway. They always do. Price of everything goes up naturally over time. That's just what happens. Some things accelerate it, and some things hold it back. So we're in a process where I suppose all the signs are right that it's going to accelerate it. By how much, we don't know.
Yeah, and to end on a cheery note after that one, the guy who was a logistics expert, he kind of, one thing that came from it, and everyone should just open the window and just check outside and make sure you don't have a fleet of shipping containers attached to a rather large boat, because they said that the shipping cabal monopoly, they were just making money hands over fist. I think they were reporting earnings in 3 months that exceeded earnings in previous 3 years. So they are jumping on that. They are making a fortune. So if you happen to have a 200,000 ton boat out there in the garden, now's the time to push it out and float it, and you're going to make a fortune. But the other thing he was talking about there was, he said, be careful of Christmas. He said, I am predicting already that there will be shortages for all sorts of things. So if you spot something now, maybe get that summer barbecue bargain and give it to someone as a Christmas present. How about that? But Christmas could be cancelled. Things might not move around the world. There you go. On that happy note, thank you very much, Ray. Back to you.
This has been the How to Raise Money podcast. I've been Ray McLennan.
I'm still Nigel T-Best. And don't worry, folks, we're only kidding. Christmas could never be cancelled. Could never be cancelled. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the How to Raise Money podcast. It's made for people who want to raise money as debt or investment equity for their business or property proposal or empire. See you next time, where we can show you how to raise money. There is abundance. There is money enough for everyone on the planet. The question is, who has yours?